Welcome to our first session of this module. In this session we're going to be considering the interrelated concepts of mental health and well-being. The picture you are now looking at is a typical image you might get if you search for well-being. Whilst a little twee and middle class, I think the image does provide a useful starting point in our considerations, as it represents standing balanced in the context of the environment. For this, our first question break of the session, I'd like you to think of what images come to mind for you when you hear the word well-being. The World Health Organization define well-being using the term mental health. They say that mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. This definition uses some interesting words, such as potential, productively, and contribution. These are clearly important concepts to being well, but from a critical perspective may also hint at a commodified and capitalised basis for well-being, and is something we will need to carefully consider when working with individuals and communities. The National Health Service take a more practical exploration, suggesting 5 ways to positive mental health and well-being. The first of these is to connect. This is building relationships with people to enrich your everyday life through developing a sense of belonging and self-worth. Second is be active. Finding the physical activities appropriate for your interest and fitness level, which will make you feel good and become healthier. The third, take notice. Being curious and observing what is going on around you, helping you to know more of what you appreciate. The fourth, keep learning. Building your confidence and sense of fun through learning new things or discovering old interests. And the fifth, give. Seeing your connectedness with the wider world and gaining the satisfaction of giving to others. These 5 ways to well-being can be a useful starting point for planning activities with coaching clients and communities. So personally, I like to think about well-being as when we purposefully enjoy being ourselves in the present moment. It's that point in life when we flourish and are able to take responsibility for ourselves and what's happening around us as much as we possibly can. For this question break, write your own definition of well-being. What is it that influences your definition? Well-being should lead us to be a more authentic version of ourselves and help us remember to be ourselves in the present moment. To achieve this, we need to learn to accept what we cannot change and change what we can. This authenticity is an important feature and builds on ideas like the Good Lives model in recognising what is good or being well for each of us is not just influenced by social norms, but also by personal needs and preferences. As coaches, we therefore need to make sure people are creating plans according to their own personal perspective, rather than just attempting to meet their perception of society's vision of a good life. With this idea of well-being being a personal construction, consider, what are your personal well-being priorities? We will now look at some of the most common mental health problems people face. These include the following: depression. This lowers your mood. The impact of depression can range between making life more difficult to enjoy to feeling suicidal. Typically, when depressed, people may feel worthless, hopeless, unmotivated, and exhausted. Anxiety. This is characterized by a constant and unrealistic worry about any aspect of daily life. When anxious, you will often feel restless and not at ease. Bipolar disorder, also commonly known as manic depression. This is characterized by extreme swings in mood from overactive, excited behavior, mania, to severe depression. The person may also experience periods of normality in between. Schizophrenia. This is typically characterized through symptoms such as confused thoughts, hearing voices, or seeing and believing things that others do not. Sufferers will not always recognize their condition. Obsessive compulsive disorder. This has two components: obsessions, which are unwelcome thoughts, ideas, or urges which reoccur in your thinking, and compulsions, repetitive activities that you feel you have to undertake. Phobias. These are exaggerated, unrealistic senses of danger about a situation or an object. People who suffer with phobias often organize their life around avoiding situations they fear. Eating problems. These may involve eating too much or too little, and are likely to engage the individual in constantly thinking about food. The most common types of eating problems are anorexia, bulimia, binging, and compulsive eating. And then there's the diagnosis of personality disorder. This is a broad term which is usually characterized by the individual finding it difficult to change patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving, and having a limited range of emotions, attitudes, and behaviors which are useful to everyday life. Some of the more common symptoms, feelings, and behaviors associated with mental health problems can include the following: panic attacks. These can last around 5 to 20 minutes and may make it feel hard to breathe, like your heart is beating faster, that you're choking, feel faint, or have chest pain. Panic attacks can occur at any time, and this is what makes them different from a natural response to real danger. Then there is self-harm. People often self-harm as an expression of deep distress. It often allows a person to feel they are communicating something they could not put into words. After self-harming, a person may feel a sense of instant relief, but it does not address the situation. Suicidal feelings are a common experience for many people suffering with a variety of mental health problems. Lots of people think about suicide but do not go on to act out on their thoughts. Speaking about it or our concerns that someone might be suicidal is important. There are a number of resources on our online learning portal which will provide you with more information about the common diagnoses and symptoms of mental health problems. There can be a variety of factors which might underpin the causes of someone's poor mental health. Usually what we can see far clearer than the cause is what the trigger of the current episode of poor mental health may be. Triggers may include childhood experiences, loneliness or discrimination, bereavement, stress, housing problems, social disadvantage, employment or unemployment or underemployment, care responsibilities, long-term health conditions, adult trauma, physical causes such as head injury or a condition like epilepsy, or genetics. It's important to recognise that an event which may be a trigger for one person may not be so for another. It is important to recognise that it is not our role, expertise or qualification to diagnose poor mental health. However, it is important for us to be aware so we can signpost people to their GP, out of hours or A&D department. Diagnoses are usually made by medical practitioners with the aid of questionnaires. When diagnosed, people may often feel a sense of relief that the problem is real and that something can be done. It can be very difficult to see someone who you care about becoming distressed and unwell, but you do not need to be an expert on mental health to offer support. Often, small, everyday actions can make the biggest difference. We'll consider some of the do's and don'ts. Labelling. Whilst someone may feel a sense of relief at gaining a diagnosis, this may also come with a sense of stigma because of the label they have received. It's important to remind people that a diagnosis does not have to shape their entire life and may come to be a relatively minor part of their identity or history. Show your support. Do not be afraid to ask how someone is. They might want to talk about it or they might not, but just letting them know that you do not have to avoid the issue with you is important. Just spending time with a person lets them know you care and can help you understand what they are going through. Ask how you can help. People will want support at different times and in different ways, so ask what you can do to help. There might be some very practical things that you can help with. Be open-minded. Phrases like cheer up, I'm sure it will pass, or pull yourself together will not help. Be non-judgmental and listen. Don't just talk about mental health. Keep in mind that having a mental health problem is just one part of the person. People don't want to be defined by their mental health problem, so keep talking about the things that you've always talked about. Show trust and respect. Trust and respect between you and the person experiencing a mental health problem are very important. They help to rebuild and maintain a sense of self-esteem, which mental health problems can seriously damage. And finally, look after yourself. It is often easier to support someone well if the caring role is shared with others. Finding someone to talk to about the situation is also very helpful. It's important to set boundaries and maintain your own mental well-being. And now for our final question break of the session. Have you ever felt you have suffered with poor mental health? If so, what worked for you in terms of the support of others?